my process of death was, again, very familiar. It wasn't scary. There was no fear. And when I did take my last breath and leave, which I was very resistant to, I had my life review. And again, they showed me what my soul assignment was, what I'm here to do, how I was here to use my intuition every day, and I didn't. And I remember them showing me the outcome of my life had I done that, that things would have been even better had I lived in alignment with my soul. And so I said, okay, put me back in, I'll do it. And they said, you can't. You died, and you'll never be that person again. It's too late.
My guest today is Mariko Frederick, who had a near-death experience. And as you know, if you watched my channel before, she had a life review, which I'm always so fascinated. And today we're going to take a deep dive into her experience, and I'm going to ask her a bunch of questions about her life review. So, Mariko, thank you so much for joining us today, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, can you tell us a little bit about what your life was like before you had your near-death experience?
Yeah, my life was good. I mean, I was almost 20, I think I'm sorry, I was 29. I was like a week before my 29th birthday, somewhere before. It was right before I turned 29. So things were good. I was married. I was living in the mountains. I had a practice in alternative medicine, Chinese medicine. I was an avid rock climber, backpacker. I was living like, I thought I was like, I had arrived, like career,
Oh,
husband, and, my sort of climbing addiction, if you will, rock climbing addiction, and friends. And it was really good. And we were living in Lake Tahoe at the time, and things were just going great. And then I died. And, it's like, I'm sure you know it yourself and you've heard, but it's like a loss of identity. There's so much that you realize you're not. So it's interesting to be asked before, because it really was, I really was in a way living my best life.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So why don't you go ahead and tell us what led up to having your near-death experience?
So, long story short, I went to somebody unknowingly who was practicing alternative medicine without a license and using equipment from somebody who did have who was licensed and a doctor, and I got injured to the point of a near-death experience.
Wow.
It was interesting for me because I remember just not realize it's like I knew I was dying, but I also didn't. And I didn't realize how injured I was. Like this came on, in my opinion, pretty fast. Like I didn't know. I knew I felt bad. I felt bad. I felt bad. And then I felt worse. And then it was like, boom. And I remember lying in bed with this weight on my chest and just pushing this weight up and down, like this heavy, heavy, like an elephant sitting on my chest. And I'm just pushing it up and letting it fall, pushing it up and letting it fall. And it was like, I think I'll stop. And then in that moment that I thought, I think I'll stop, I knew that meant I was going to not be here anymore, but I also knew it didn't. And when I did, I was still in ego. And when I did, my first thought was, wow, that's better. Breathing's so overrated. It's funny we think we have to do it, And I was like, "Ooh, I'm feeling better. No pain. The pressure in the weight on my chest is gone. Like I feel good, right?" And then you start to feel really good and go through, like, I didn't go through a tunnel per se, but I had this light. It was like 1,000 suns shining at my spiritual eye, but it wasn't too bright. It was like it always had been there, and I just kind of forgot. And I was in that, I guess you can say. And I remember after that seeing my husband and just sort of saying goodbye to him. We had a wolf dog at the time, a wolf hybrid, and my parents, they're living far away, but still like in California, but still I was just sort of saying goodbye to family and friends. And then I stepped beyond the veil, in what I call a veil, because it's just like this thin veil between here and there. And it's such a small, we think of it as the other side or death and so permanent, but when you're doing it, it's like, oh, this is just like this thin little veil. And that's when I went into my life review. So
Immediately, as soon as you're there.
pretty much, I mean, I went through, I said goodbye to everybody, and then it was like, yeah, it was time to start seeing who I had been. And so I went, all the way back to the beginning, and you don't go through like every moment that you brush your teeth and tie your shoes, right? It's the moment of decision and interaction and important moments in your life. And the way I understand it now, it was the moments that I was aligned with my soul or the moments that I was not aligned with my soul. And the
Mm.
moments, the first one they really showed me, I mean, I got to see like babyhood and all and just like re-experience, but it goes by so fast. And then, and except there's no time. So it's hard to say it was fast because there was no time. But the first moment for me was really when I chose to be mean to a friend in kindergarten. And I made her cry. And I did it on purpose. And I wasn't a bad kid. I was just playing with power. I was just playing with, you know, I don't know how to say that, but I was learning and I was really mean to her. And then I made her cry. And don't worry, we're still friends. She's not mad at me.
I
And
was actually, was one of my questions for
oh
you.
my
How
God,
interesting.
there's a part of the story that I never share that I have got to tell you guys today because it gets
Please,
even
please,
crazier
please.
and more magical. So here we are
Okay.
in kindergarten, and she's laughing at these pop. I mean, God, I was so mean. It's like embarrassing to say this, but I'm just gonna be vulnerable and say this. So and I'm in kindergarten, so I'm like 4 or 5 years old. But there's paw prints outside of my parents' house and like with a name, and she starts laughing at it, kind of giggling. I don't know why, but she thought it was funny. And I looked at her, I said, well, that dog is dead, and how would you like it if you died and everyone laughed at you? So mean. So and then I just keep going after her. I don't remember what I said, but I'm like, they really miss their dog. Now I have no idea if the dog actually died or not today. I can't remember. I'm just being a mean little kindergartner. So then she starts crying. And then I stopped, not because I cared that she was crying, because I don't want to get in trouble. So full disclosure.
Oh,
Me being a mean
interesting.
little kindergartner, I know, and I swear I'm not mean now. But so this happens in my life review. Guess what I get to experience? I go all the way back to that first time that I chose to be out of alignment with my soul and to be mean to somebody on purpose.
Oh.
And
Did you
I got
feel her reaction to it?
I was her. So it was crazy because in my
Mm.
experience, I was me being mean. And at the same time, I was her experiencing, like, why is my friend being so mean? Why is she so, like, why is she hurting my feelings? And at the same time, I was experiencing oneness consciousness with no judgment and pure love, unconditional love. So
Mm.
there's three parts to that one. And so every moment of, the times that I was, I guess, good and helpful, right? I used to work in a trauma intensive care unit, so I got to see some of those moments. I did Chinese medicine. I've helped a lot of people. So I got to you get that back in return vibrationally. And it's like, I couldn't hold the gratitude and the love from the universe in this body. It would like explode me. It was so much, right? But it just comes vibrating into you, so much gratitude and love. And then when you do, you mess up, there's really no mistakes, but when you're learning and you're doing something like I was doing, you feel that as well, and you feel just the deepest regret, and you'll never do it again. And you realize because there is unconditional love, no judgment, I'm judging me. I'm the one making me feel bad. The universe, consciousness, God, whatever you call it, is totally impartial, just kind of like watching this happen, no judgment, just love. But I'm judging me. I'm going, oh God, what did I do? So that was one of my, I will say, life reviews, because I don't know if you know this, but I stayed conscious between lifetimes. So I remember my last life and everything that happens in between lifetimes. And so I remember that life review too. And that one's actually more significant for me because it brings me to
Mm.
what I do today. But I have to finish this story.
Yes,
There we
yes.
are, Sherry. Her name's Sherry. And we're still friends on Facebook and we still talk sometimes. So don't worry, she's not mad. And so there I was, 4 years old, being mean. We were friends, high school, went through high school and everything, and then just kind of lost touch for a long time. Then there I am working in the trauma intensive care unit. And one of the nurses was like, hey, can you go tell the family member of, so I was working as an ICU tech. And, one of the family members are, can you go tell the family members that, their loved one is here? We're just getting them, admitted, or like kind of hooked up, I guess you can say, just getting them comfortable and settled before they can come in. So I go out there to the waiting room, and there's Sherry with her family. And her loved one had been in a traumatic accident, and there I am.
And
So,
this is after you've had the life review.
nope, this
Oh,
is
it's
before.
before.
This is
Okay.
before. Yeah, because I'm like in my, I was in my I may have been 21 at the time, I don't remember. but I walk into the room and it's just a room full of their family. And it's like, I could feel like kind of the relief and the surprise of like, oh God, we know someone here, which is nice, when you're in that situation. And so I'm supposed to be there for like 5 minutes, just kind of getting them, up to speed. You can come in soon. We're just getting him ready and all this. And I spent an hour just pouring into her and her mom with the whole family around me, telling them what's going on. And it was beautiful. It was
So
beautiful. And so
you're
the universe,
connected to her by the time you have this life review.
yes, but the other thing that's more important, less important about me, about everybody else, you get the opportunities to fix it. You get the
The opportunities
opportunities
to
to
come.
correct.
So what did you do to correct that? Because this is so
I
fascinating.
think that was my moment of correcting it, of saying, let me
Oh,
just stop
like you've
everything.
erased it. Even before you had the life review, but you still saw that you've erased it because you've changed the energy exchange.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I erase anything, but it was like it equaled out of like, I don't have that with me anymore. I went in and I balanced it out of like, and I knew it. I remembered, wasn't that long from 4 to 20 something years old. I remembered how I behaved. And it was just the natural thing for me to do as well. So yeah. And then every day that I was working, I just tried to take extra good care and, just make sure they had what they needed. The family had what they needed to, and, got the attention they needed. So
Well, since we're talking about her, did you talk to her about this after you had your life review?
no, I talked to her about this before my book published, and I mentioned her in the book.
And
And I reached out on
did she
Facebook.
did she remember the incident?
No, she didn't.
She didn't, but you did. When you had the life review and you saw that, you remembered it. It was significant enough for you that it was part of your conscious awareness,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
not hers.
not
Isn't
her.
that interesting?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
what did she say when you told her that that was what you had reviewed?
Oh, I can't remember. I think we honestly were on the phone for like 3 or 4 hours that day because we hadn't talked and since high school, and it's been a long time, so I can't remember. But but I do remember her just like sharing. You remember how they make you feel, and I just felt love and kind of surprise. And I remember her laughing, like I don't remember any of that. I know she didn't remember it, but she wasn't, upset or anything. And I said, can I use your first name? And she was like, yeah, go ahead in my book. So
Oh, how cool.
yeah.
Okay, so you're in your life review and you have that, and then what happens?
I go through all the significant moments, right? The moments that again, like that, but just more. And of course, childhood was mostly bliss. And that was the one that really stood out to me because there was a lot of good that I did, right? Working in ICU, you just do things that people don't see you doing. You just do good things, right? So there was a lot of that too, but that was the one that stood out because again, there's no past because I was little and didn't know better. There wasn't a past. My consciousness, my soul knew better. I, on some level, knew right from wrong, and I didn't. So I think that was the important thing. It wasn't like I was, the time that well, they've passed on now, but the time that I lied to my parents about where I was going, when I was really going to a party or something like that we did. Maybe you didn't, but little things like that. I don't remember a lot of that coming up. That was really like I hurt somebody on purpose. Not cool,
Wow.
not okay.
Mhm. So
Um,
intention
yes,
counts.
intention counts. Not doing stupid teenage stuff. I don't remember that anyways. I may have, had you talked to me like, 2 days after the experience, I may have remembered more, but honestly, it's not what stuck with me.
Mm-hmm,
That's the
mm-hmm.
moment that stuck with me. That was the one that they ingrained in me. And then from there, yeah, gosh, so much happened. It's always funny to break it down, but I remember I was seeing this sort of silhouette of somebody kind of going through a tunnel of light, but they were dropping down into it. And I remember these four souls around me, just love, just pure bliss, love, joy. There, nothing else. There was no, people say, what did you see? I'm like, you don't see with your eyes though. Or I didn't see with my eyes. Maybe some people do. I didn't see with my human eyes. And so, and I didn't hear with my human ears in the same way. I call it thought waves. But I did ask, because I'm still not too far from being human, right? So I asked, who is that? And they said, it's the part of you that gets attached. And we just in the silence watched it float through into this white light. And then, you know, I was getting downloaded. And I remember feeling like something very sacred was happening and they were giving me information. And it was as if, yeah, it was as if they kind of plugged into me. We just got quiet for a long time. And I knew that I would need it later, but they weren't saying what it was. It was just like I could feel this sacred download coming into me. And then I was home. And then it was like, oh, I shed all beliefs of who I was, right? Then I shed the ego. I just remember standing. And again, it's so funny to say standing or time or any of this because it doesn't equate to the same thing, but I have to use human language. But it felt like I was standing and just watching the universe. And I remember having this experience of going, I'm home, I'm me, I'm love, I'm joy. I was never Mariko. I was never a rock climber. I never practiced Chinese medicine. I was never any of those things. I am love. I am ever expanding love. I am joy. I am bliss. I'm free. I'm me, right? And just coming into that consciousness of this is who I am as oneness, as bliss. I am bliss. It's still not, there's still separateness, right? Because I am bliss and that's separate than oneness. But still, I'm having this experience. And people have asked, like, how long did that happen? How long were you there? And again, there's no time, but the word I came back with was 800 years. That's what it felt like, 800 years of just being me, being the real me. I'm finally the real me. And then I hear this voice say, it's not your time. You have to go back. You have to go back and help people. And me being me, I was like, nope, I'm home. I'm good. I'm home. Like, why would I go anywhere? And it's thought waves. It's like this vibration of what they're saying. So it's not just that you're hearing it, although that I did kind of hear it in that way, but there's also the vibration understanding. And so I was like, mm-mm. And then again, you have to go back. It's not your time. You have to go back and help people. And they're just like infusing me with love. And I was like, no, thanks. And then the third time, yeah, I think, my ego was still there somewhat. So, my personality was still there. And on the third time, they said, it's not your time. Everybody has a time and that they can leave this world, and this isn't your time. You can't go before or after, and this is not your time. You have to go back and help people. And in the moment, people have asked me this, like, wait, so you can never leave early? I felt like there were windows of time that you could leave early, but I don't feel like it was in your best interest to do that. And I'm really careful to talk about that because I don't want anyone ever having an out of going, oh, well, I think I'll take my own life. That is not what should be done. You should stay as long as possible because you're here to get something done. So I'm really careful when I talk about that. But you really are here to stay as long as you possibly can and leave when it really is your time. And so at that, I understood and I said, okay, I'll do it. And I'm trying to get back in my body, but I have no idea. Like, how do I get back in my body and who am I going to go be?
You
So
can see your body laying there and
no,
you're trying to
I'm
get
not,
back in, or
I
you
am
just know?
nowhere. No, I am nowhere in the human realm anymore. I am
Okay.
nowhere in the human realm. But it was like my intention, like, let's do this. You know, there's nothing. So I said, I need help. I don't know. I can't get back in my body. And I just think it's funny that I was like, all right, no idea. So I feel like I'm getting hurled through space at that time so fast. And all of a sudden I'm slammed back in my body, raking pain head to toe. I take a breath, crack open my eyes, and it's like I feel I hadn't opened my eyes yet. I come into my body and then I'm like, I gotta go to the hospital. I go because trauma nursing, I gotta go to the hospital. So at that thought, they kind of almost bring me back into the bliss. They bring me back into soul awareness. And they leave me with a message of don't use Western medicine.
Oh,
Okay.
interesting.
Well, that's
Okay.
not comfortable, right?
Right.
So I come back all the way. And my husband's there trying to kind of wake me up. I mean, he's shaking me. He's kind of slapping my face. Like, again, before you start CPR, you try to wake somebody up. So he was doing that. Thank goodness he didn't have to start that. And they brought me back before any kind of compression started. And so I came back and I told him what happened. I remember he said, "Where'd you go?" And I said, "I died." And I was lying there because the life force had been drained out of my body as I was taking my last several breaths. And I wasn't moving, I wasn't getting up, I just lied there and I told him the story of what happened. Um, and it was a journey to get well. It wasn't quick, it was like a good 10-year journey. Because
That's
at
a
the
long
same
time.
time, well, and at the same time, I didn't know it, but I had contracted Lyme disease 3 weeks before this whole thing happened. I got bit by a tick, and it ended up becoming end-stage Lyme disease 3.5 years later. It was in my brain. I was having mini strokes, and absent seizures, and so I just kept getting sicker and sicker. So it was not fun. Yeah.
I'm curious. You just said that they told you not to use Western medicine. You don't look
So
like you have Lyme disease. What did you do?
thank you. I know, right? So the first thing I did was we called my one of my teachers in Chinese medicine, and I think he actually drove down. At the time he was living like 3 hours away. So he drove over and brought herbs and just did healings on me. I think he stayed with us actually and just did healings like every day. And then I went to him. But interestingly enough, 5 weeks later, I was like, well, I want to know, like, is there permanent damage? I'm like, weird things are happening in my body. And so I went to a doctor and told him the story, thinking he's going to think I'm nuts. Turns out 8 years prior, he had had a near death experience. And so he was like, we are not doing anything. I'll do some lab tests on you, but nothing else. But it was a journey. And with the Lyme disease, it was a journey of I happened to find a doctor who was both a medical doctor and a naturopath, and
Mm-hmm.
her husband's a neurologist. And they
Mm-hmm.
put it together. It took a long time, but they put it together, and then I got treatment and I got better. And I wasn't supposed to. At one point, I remember she had the talk with me, and I've seen this happen because I worked in, hospitals,
Yeah.
my expectations. And I remember she was saying, like, you should get into pottery because that would be really good for somebody with the type of illness you have, so that you have something to do in life. And I remember
Because
thinking,
you're not going to be able to function, she's thinking.
yeah, I mean, slurred speech. I couldn't remember. My memory was shot. I was in some ways sort of handicapped in a way. And I was like, no, thank you. And she believed in me. Like if anybody believed in me, it was her, but she was preparing me for my life. And instead, I remember when the moment she told me, it was like the whole room was just lit up. And then I was like, yeah, that's not what's going to happen here. And I got better. And I'm like, to this day, if I ever go in her office, she introduces me. She's like, this is like, I'm like one of her miracle patients.
Oh,
It's fun.
wow.
Yeah. So that was that life review.
That's amazing. Okay, so you said something that's really significant, and I want to come back to this again. You said everybody has a time, or as you said, windows of time. And I think that the reason that this is so powerful for you to say that is that sometimes when people die, we beat ourselves up. I should have been there. I should have done this. I could have done this. What would have happened if I had listened to something else and I had gone to a different doctor? And they just almost become imprisoned by
Yeah.
these thoughts that they should have been able to do something else. And I
Yeah.
think that this message that you're bringing back will help free some people to understand that there wasn't anything else that could have been done that would have prevented, would have stopped it. If it was their time or their window of time, it was time for them to go. And I think that for some people listening, that would be a relief. So, what do you have to say to those people?
You know, we don't die. So don't worry. Nobody died. There is no death. Nobody died. My cousin just left her body earlier this year. She was literally the closest person in my family to me. I mean, we're so close. And she
Oh,
left her body this past or this past April. And she's good.
of
She's good.
course.
I mean,
Of
she's
course.
blissed out. So why would I want her sick the way she was to stay
Yeah,
here, just to be staying here and not doing the work she's here to do? We carry on. We leave this physical body, but you have a body of light that
right.
you become. Again, she's become, our loved ones are becoming their truest self after they leave this body. So we can, but I guess my point is, try not to feel bad for them because they're good.
Right.
We're
I
the
think we feel bad
ones,
for ourselves, right?
yeah,
Because
we
we're
feel
the
bad
ones
for
that messed up.
ourselves. Like, let's get clear here. They're in bliss. They're good. Things are good. Now, our understanding of why doesn't always work, right? My parents passed on and I can understand that they were older. When a child passes on, It doesn't make any sense. I
Right.
still cannot make sense of that. It doesn't feel right. So I
Right.
think that's a different conversation. Are they okay? Yes. Does it
Mm.
ever feel okay? No.
No, right.
But so it's almost like there's two different types, but nobody ever dies. There is no
Right.
death. I don't want to say hate, but I don't like that word. Even near
Yeah.
death experience kind of gets me funny, makes me laugh a little because I'm like, they weren't going to let me die, so was I really that close to it? But we do go to the other side and get to come back, some of us, but nobody dies. There is no death. It's just it's like waking up to the truth of who you are and who you've always been. And it's an experience we're all going to have. And we put so much emphasis on birth and the first breath.
Mm-hmm.
We get upset with the last breath and then the rebirth into who you truly are. But
Yeah.
it's a beautiful spiritual experience of your loved ones becoming the wholeness of their expression of their soul. And that's
Wow.
nothing to be sad about. Even if they're young, part of you, I would like part of people to be able to understand, like, even if they're young, they also got to become the greatest expression of themselves, even if it doesn't make sense to us here because they left early.
Right. Well, I think
But
that's very
early.
comforting.
But it's not early. It was on time for them.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in your life review, you said after it ended, you had the four beings that were
Mhm.
surrounded where you watched your light body go down and it was letting you let go of the attachment. So, number one, do you have any idea who those beings are? And number two, why was it important for you to see and let go of the attachment?
I think, it's interesting because when it wasn't light, it was more of a silhouette. So it was almost like
Hmm.
my shadow in a way. It was just
Mm.
a silhouette outline of me. I don't know. I've never had that. It was just, I've never had anyone ask me that. Why was it important? I mean, it was interesting because I came back and I was very non-attached for a long time, which was hard to come back and create some identity for myself because my whole identity had gone, right? I wasn't, I came back and just ended up getting sick. So I went from like this 125-pound, super healthy rock climber to 200 pounds crawling on the floor. I went from
Wow.
running my own practice to being too confused to turn a doorknob or use my phone. So my loss of identity was both in this world and also spiritually. I got to see the truth of who I am,
Right.
get unattached to who I thought I was, and then somehow be 29 and build a life with my husband, which is all identity.
Hmm.
And it was
Contradiction.
it was heartbreaking. It was devastating. It wasn't fun. It wasn't happy. It was devastating. Like, how do I be this? And at the time, there wasn't NDE podcasts. There wasn't, I mean, there's probably blogs at the time, and I wasn't talking about it with people. A lot of people, there's probably more out there, and they're not willing to talk about it. It's sometimes we don't have the human words to describe it. It
Right.
took me a long time too. And I knew I
Hmm.
had to do it. I knew I had to have a book. I knew I had to do all these things. And at the same time, I'm lying in bed, just trying to breathe in and out.
So do you have any idea who those light beings were?
I mean, I think it's so hard because people ask that, and I'm like, they're not just spirit guides. They were so powerful.
Mm.
And I guess I've never really done a session to find out who they are, because it's funny. I, I guess here's my answer. Yes, I know who they are. And I think the issue is I don't have a clear human communication to share that because I've always known them and they've
Mm.
always known me. And we were so close. Can I describe in a human term that makes sense to everybody? No, not a spirit guide, not God, not whatever other angels. It was something different, but we were so connected that I can't say I didn't know who they were. I just don't know what to call them.
I wonder if they were I think that we have these clusters of really, really close soul family. They don't all incarnate when we do, and maybe that was because you've always known them and they were really close in your soul group.
Nope.
Nope, not them either.
Nope. That was a big no. And I don't know that I'm meant to at this time. Maybe one day they'll give me the answers. No, it wasn't family. I was clear about that. Even the person ushering me, well, this is a different death but the person that ushered me from death where I stayed gone wasn't a family member. It was like it was their job to do this.
Yeah, I didn't mean family member. I mean
Oh,
soul family,
no, I
soul
yeah,
group. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. They
Okay,
were like,
so
I think the best description I can say is they were like masters. They
oh,
were spiritual masters, but that's not a word that quite fits. It's the closest thing I've come up with, but it's still not quite, you know, not quite there. But yeah,
were
they were,
they the ones that communicated the download?
yeah, they
So
gave me the download. They told me to come back. Yeah.
a little bit about the download and what that was.
Oh yeah. So again, it took a long time. Like I didn't, it was like walking around with an assignment on your soul and not being able to do anything about it. I couldn't access it, and I didn't know what it was. There's no words. I was like, I don't know what this is. But it's now I did kind of get the complete download not too long ago, right before my book came out. It was like all of it came through, and I was like, oh, this is it. And it's what I call the four soul archetypes, and it's
Okay.
how it's the bridge from your daily life to your spiritual self, to your soul, and how you can actually live in alignment and you can have an understanding of how you're working through your soul every minute of the day, even when you're at work, in a corporate job, parenting, whatever it is. You can start to have an understanding of, oh, I'm using this archetype right now, or I'm in this archetype right now, and I'm not in a soul sucking job. I'm actually in this archetype.
So do we change archetypes or do we have a primary one? How does that work?
You have all four archetypes. You
Okay.
have all four of them. You've always had all four of them. And one of them I feel like is more natural. It's like breathing for you. And then I feel like we have ones that we have a season that's kind of our favorite, but we have all four of them all the time. So they are the reflector archetype, and that's the part of you that sees the truth in all souls. You understand and you know the truth right away. And I'm just skimming these kind of quickly. And then you have the connector archetype. The connector archetype takes ideas, it takes gifts, and brings it out to the world. It connects you with everything you need. All of the, connector archetypes have like a contact list of the who's who, and they're really genius at monetizing your gift. They make so much money for other people. They see the gift in them and they can monetize it. Now, they don't always monetize their own when they have a wound on their archetype, but they do monetize people's gifts. And the ones that the world needs to see, right? It's not about money. They just happen to be good at it. Then there's the creator archetypes. Creator archetypes are receiving a constant download of new information. And it's funny because they only share a small fraction of it with the world, and they talk about even less. And they're both comforted by the fact that they hide and people don't know what's going on in their head. And I think they also feel a little resentment because they are geniuses. And they're also the least supported of all the archetypes because they are here to usher in, well, we're all ushering in the new age, but they're bringing in the new tech, the new ideas, the new music, all the new things that we need to move into the higher age of being. And they're the ones bringing that
Mhm.
in and channeling it through. And they have the least support, right? They are the starving artist. They are the starving musician, right? The people that they just, the constant download. Now, we all have a creator archetype, right? I created my own modality of healing, astral therapy. I've created a lot. But do I have a constant stream that never ends? No. But those people do. And they know who I'm talking about, right? And then there's the expander archetype. The expander archetypes are the people who they spot gifts everywhere, they spot talent, and they want to put you on their stage, they want to get you on their podcast, they want to like expand you out to the world. The interesting thing about expander archetypes, I'm talking to you, yes, they get you on your podcast and they spotlight everyone else. Now here's the magic about this archetype. They expand things around us. So what happens is all of us are going on a path, and then we hit the end of the path and we're like, okay, we'll go to another path. When expander archetype comes to the end of the path, opens it up for everybody else to walk through, and then we can go through. But a lot of times expander archetypes are so busy spotlighting somebody else, they're never in the spotlight. But when you get an expander archetype in the spotlight, teaching, sharing, they're expanding for everybody around them. So expander archetypes are really meant to also be in the spotlight.
This is
So those are
really
the
cool.
four.
I've never heard anybody, obviously I've, been familiar with your content and I've been on your mailing list and I'm exposed to it. But will you tell everybody about your quiz so they can find out what they
Oh
are?
yeah, go to my website, soulpriority.com, and there's a free quiz. And you can figure out which archetype is the most active. Now, I'm not going to say it's the one that you are because you have all four. Some of you
Mhm.
have one that's really highly activated right now. And honestly, people do come to me because they want to monetize their gifts. They want to like kind of create a soul aligned business. And the one that's the most activated in you is often the one that you very well could be doing for work. It's the one that feels good. So, for instance, I'm a reflector archetype, right? You can call me an intuitive, psychic, whatever. I just see everything all the time. It never turns off. It's just a constant flow of information. And that's my reflector archetype. My favorite, a lot of times, is I like all of them, but my favorite, I go through seasons where I'm the expander archetype and I'm just getting everybody seen where they need to be. And then the connector archetype. I love monetizing people's gifts. It's so much fun. I have a great time doing it. Um, and then the creator archetype, it's like that's where I created astral therapy. Um, and a lot of it's just downloads, but am I a musician? No, God, no, So then some people have all four activated and they're all of them. So
Wow.
yeah, you can go find out which one is the most activated of them on my website.
That's awesome. I think people would definitely should go check that out because I think that's really fun. So you mentioned also that you had more than one near-death experience. So would
Yeah.
you like to share the other one that you had?
Sure, it wasn't a near death, it was a death.
Okay.
So I stayed conscious between my last life and this one, and I thought everyone did. I had no idea that people didn't remember everything from before we were born until I was about 19 years old. I literally didn't know until I was talking to somebody, and he told me that people don't remember this. And I was a teenager and he was like, whoa, people don't talk about what you're talking about. And I just thought he remembered because in my reflector archetype, I'm talking to a high conscious being. Don't you remember? Before we're born, the place with all the lights. And I started going on and he's like, But yeah, I remembered all of it. So I remember coming home. I mean, this is, I don't know. I like want to study history to know when this was, but it could have been like 800, 1,000 years ago. I don't know. But the way I
Okay.
was dressed and looking at stuff, it was a long time ago. And I was a man. And I remember coming up the stairs to my home and just processing. And I was standing at my window watching the vegetable cart guy go by. And I was just really upset because he was going to live and I was going to die. And I had a daughter. I was a single dad. My wife had died. And I was just processing. And I remember it so clearly. I remember it was cold, but not cold enough to have a fire. I remember what I was wearing. And then I remember all of it, but my process of death was, again, very familiar. It wasn't scary. There was no fear. And when I did take my last breath and leave, which I was very resistant to, I had my life review. And again, they showed me what my soul assignment was, what I'm here to do, how I was here to use my intuition every day. And I didn't. And I remember them showing me the outcome of my life had I done that, that things would have been even better had I lived in alignment with my soul. And so I said, okay, put me back in, I'll do it. And they said, you can't. You died and you'll never be that person again. It's too late.
Hmm.
So that's why I do what I do today. I live with that every day. I live with those words. I live with that experience every day. And I don't want anyone to die with an assignment on their soul.
Oh my goodness. So do we all have an assignment on our soul?
Yeah, and the easiest thing is everybody's assignment really is the same, which is enlightenment. Like that's the only thing that's like really, if you're going to go after something, go after that. Raise your
Explain what you
consciousness.
mean when you say enlightenment, because that means a lot of things to a lot of
I
people. What does
know,
that mean
a
to
big
you?
word.
Yeah, it
It
is a big
means,
word.
I know. And I almost wish we had a different word. So a lot of times I just say raise your consciousness, remember who you are as the soul. And it can be however it is for you. I think everyone thinks, oh, that's for Buddha, that's for Christ. I have to, spend all day meditating. No, I think the process is feeling your soul it's hard to say feeling your soul if you haven't, but like feeling something that lights you up, where you're just happy, excited, you're feeling a lot of love, you're just in flow with life, things are going good, right? And even if they're not, you have maybe at some point a blueprint, you have a reference point of, oh yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay. No matter the storm around me, I'm okay. That's tuning into your soul, and do that more and more often throughout your day, throughout your month, your years. Raise your consciousness. And that is the only thing that you're really here to do, because the soul doesn't do anything. That said, I don't know about you, but I got bills to pay. I got things to do, housing, water, food, all costs. And so I love to see people doing what they're here to do, using their gifts, whether it's the four soul archetypes or psychic gift or whatever, or a gift of art, music, doing that in alignment with how they earn money, so that they're not living in a job that they really don't like, and then doing what feeds their soul part-time. I want people to do what's feeding their soul full-time, because that alone raises your vibration, raises your
Mm.
consciousness. So living in alignment with the four soul archetypes and going, oh, I am aligned. This is my expander archetype. And if I could just feel that, I'm aligned with my soul right now. So it's almost like an easy way to raise your consciousness while you're doing your normal daily life.
That's
That's
amazing.
but I think everybody has something different. Like, you're here to do what you're here to do. Some
Right.
people are just here to be a beacon of light in the town they live in, and that's it, and keep raising their consciousness, right? Some people are volunteering, some people are building businesses. Everybody's doing something different, but when you take your last breath, it doesn't really matter as much what you did. No one's asking you for your profit and loss statement, how you did, you know? God's not like,
No.
so how do we do? No, how often were you tuned into your soul? When was that happening? All the time, or just like a couple times? Do it all the time, because you are the soul. You're not this human body. We're human for like a blink. And
And
so,
notice in your life review, they weren't showing you all the times that you got accolades and when you got a raise and when you were making this amount of money or when you had this in the bank or you bought this possession. It
no.
was when you were in alignment or not in alignment with your soul. I think that you're the first person. I've talked to a lot of people who have had life reviews. You're the first person I've ever heard say that. This is fascinating to me.
Wow. Yeah, I think it's so simple. Just try to be a good being, be a good person. And then I always tell my
Good
clients,
intention.
yeah, it's intentionality. That's it. And then stop being so human. So Earth is,
Which is a little hard to do when we're here.
no, it's not. Like, you don't act human. Look at you. So here's the thing. Let me just qualify that, because that kind of sounds, I don't mean like talk like no, be an alien. What I mean
I know. I'm
is, because
teasing.
I'm pretty grounded. I'm not. So what I mean by that is there are higher realms and lower realms. And this is all the information when I lived and had a whole lifetime in between lives. And that's all in my book. If you want to read Soul Priority, it's all in there. It's on Amazon. I think it's free on the Kindle app. So it's it's let me see. There is Earth, which is a C average planet. And then
Which is
there
a
are
say that again?
it's a C average, like A, B, C, D, F, it's like
Really?
C average. Yeah,
C
we're not that
average?
great.
What do you mean by C average?
Like, in school, we're like a C average planet. So
Okay.
there are lower realms.
Oh, I see. I see. And the high low. Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there are lower realms and there are higher realms. We're like an average C average planet, right?
Okay.
So
There are worse places
now,
we could be.
what's that?
There's worse places we could
There's
be.
worse places, but there's better. So here's the thing: people, souls, and I'm not saying good, bad, right?
Right.
I'm saying lower realm beings and higher realm beings. Now, but we're all one. So think of it, the way I put it is, our eyes are higher than our knees, but we're all one, and we need both. And when I say higher, lower realm beings, you think bad, hell, you think good, heaven, but it's not, because there's oneness. And it's not a hierarchy. It's just I need my knees just as much as I need my eyes. But the lower realm beings are working their way through consciousness. They're working their way up. So they're working in the lower realms, and they finally get to come to Earth. Okay, awesome. I get to Earth. Well, they forget who they are, and they start acting like a lower realm being, and they create nonsense, trafficking, bad things that are happening, right? Wars, genocide, things like that. They start because it's comfortable for them. They're in flow. This is good. This is good. I feel in flow. Then we have higher realm beings who incarnate here.
Hmm.
And instead of continuing to act like a higher realm being, they look around, they go to school, they get a job, they just try to be really good, and they act too human. And I want to awaken these beings to say, stop acting so human, start expanding that light, start shining that intergalactic light that you have, stop apologizing for how gifted you are, and get going, because we are here to shift up the energy, the awareness, the consciousness of this world. And the lower realm beings are just being there, they're living their best lives. And when you come here and we have this spiritual sort of, I do want to say hierarchy, like how enlightened are you? Well, are you enlightened? And this person's more enlightened than me, and blah, blah, blah. No, Just be the radiant soul you are unapologetically all the time. And there are beings here that are incarnating that have been living in higher realms. Like I went to the higher realm and then I went to an even higher one. And then I would travel to different ones sometimes. And then I come here and I go through life. It wasn't always easy. And I experience abuse and different things. And I, try to go to school and get a job and do all the normal things that we're meant to do. And it took me dying and for them to say, remember who you are, go back and help people, to go, oh, I have to literally share that story. And again, I'm resistant. So it took a long time. Yeah.
When you were saying that, when you were explaining the higher level and how we're here to raise the vibration, so I get this feeling inside my ear, the hairs stand up only in my left ear, and it only happens when I'm hearing truth and my spirit team is acknowledging that something is truth. And as you were saying that, I got that feeling. So thank you for sharing that because that's really powerful to hear. I knew that that was truth as you were saying it.
Yes, thank you. Wow, you're the second person to tell me that in a week. The ear thing, another interview.
Really? I've talked about this a lot. I don't know anybody else that I've ever met that has that happen. It's like the hair stands on your, up on your arms, but it happens to me inside my ear, only on the left side. But I've learned over many, many, many years, it's been happening maybe 20 years for me now, what that is, who that is. It's my spirit team.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, somebody else told me that last week. Interesting.
Crazy. I love it. I
And to
love
me,
it.
it's just so normal, it's just so normal to remember everything between lives. It's so normal to bring this because it's the story of what happened in between lives. I just want to say it's not that I'm so special. I just brought it back for you guys to remember. It's your
We
story too.
So Christian Sundberg was on my channel not very long ago, and I'm sure you're aware of him, but he remembers his life before he was here. So I have a question for you. So you remember that man that you were, you remembered how you died, you remember that time that you had in the in-between lives. Do you remember planning to be Mariko?
Kind of, yeah. And it's funny because of all the things I remember, that was kind of it was the least big deal. Um, I remember standing with my spiritual teacher and two souls behind me, kind of like on either side. And one of them was going to be my daughter, and one was going to be my husband. But mostly we were celebrating, and there were a lot of other souls. This is in the astral realm, and there was just a celebration because I was going to move on to a higher realm before I went and did all this. And
So before
that's
you came
honestly more.
here, you went to a different realm?
Yeah, I went, so in between lives, first I went to the astral realm, world of light, world of, emotion, bliss, joy, a lot of things, not only joy. You see your family, it's a reunion, it's what people might feel is heaven. And then from there, I worked hard to again, wanting to go into a higher state of consciousness. I wanted the higher teachings, I wanted God consciousness. So I would sit in my meadow of light and meditate and try to reach that level of oneness. And I eventually got to go into a higher realm, and I went into what is, I think, called the causal realm, which is where thoughts are created. So it's where other beings that were there were literally creating their own realms, creating their own universes. And I was there and then after that, I went into actual oneness consciousness. And then I was here, then I was born.
So what do you think the purpose was of you going to that higher realm before you're coming into another earthly incarnation?
I think it was what I wanted, honestly. I wanted the higher teachings. And so I went through receiving the higher teachings. I went through, again, it just there is no linear time. So it felt like so long because you're only experiencing infinity. I've never thought of like the purpose. It's just kind of part of me, of who I
Mm.
am. It's like, what is the purpose of you having blonde hair? Like it's
Yeah.
it's just so normal for me. But I think what I do with it is I try to teach people to remember who they are, less important who I am. But I want people to feel who they are and get to work, because again, it's not a battle, it's not a war, but it's like, these lower realm beings are happy, they're doing their thing. And you've got, and we people that are higher realm beings that have been incarnating on these higher realms that are coming here, it's like time to wake up and get to work and stop acting so human, stop acting so average. I think part of why I remember it is so that I can help other people remember. Why, in the personal sense, do I remember it? I don't really worry about that. What can I do to serve? What can I do to help others remember it, right? Because it's not like a personal gain for me that I remember it. Just like you're not like, oh gosh, I'm so special. I have this beautiful hair. It's just your hair. Now, obviously, this is different, but again, it's a part of me. So my question is, well, what can I do to serve? What can I do to help people remember who they are? Because that's
Right.
what I already remember who I am.
Yeah.
How do I help other people? And I forget, I have human days. I have, I get overwhelmed, it's fine. We don't have to be perfect.
No, of course not. Well, I think it's interesting because I know from my experiences that there really are no accidents. So anybody who's watching this today and who's getting these messages, this is the wake up call for them if they're not already on that path. But I think that there are some things that we can do. I know you mentioned meditation. I'm not a good meditator, so that doesn't resonate with me. And so for the people that are watching, what are some simple things that they can do that will help them to wake up and stay less human?
Honestly, it's so individual. I mean, I live in San Diego. For some people, it's surfing. Like, what lights you up? What makes you happy? What just tunes you in? It can be so if I'm having a bad day, honestly, I'll listen to a book on Audible that just like brings me back into that state of joy.
Yeah,
Um, I might bake cookies or do something with my daughter. That's just like, oh, this is fun. Like I'm just happy, right? Um, so it's not about clearing your mind and going into oneness consciousness because for some people that's too hard and they have a busy
mhm,
mind. So what does that leave
mhm.
them out? No. How can you utilize that busy mind? What brings you joy? For me, again, sometimes I get into this state of just bliss by listening to a certain book, spiritual books or different books. Sometimes it's music. Sometimes it's
Yep,
going on a walk at the beach or the lagoon or wherever you are. Like, I know in Phoenix, there's a lot of beautiful desert
yeah.
preserves
I
up
climb a
there.
mountain every day just to
Yeah,
get into
you
the
can
nature.
literally go climb like, oh, there's so many mountains out there. I was going to say Camelback, or you could go
Yeah,
to Sedona and do Bell Rock, or like
yeah,
go to Flagstaff. Like what lights you up?
right.
That is your soul going, hey, I'm having a good day.
Yeah,
It's when you're feeling it in your heart.
I
Get in
love
your
it.
heart, get out of your head. That's
Yeah.
it. Get out of your head, get into your heart. Serve from your heart, live from your heart, breathe from your heart. You're going to have times where you're pissed off. And what I ask myself is, who is the I that's so pissed off right now? And then
That's
my
your
soul,
non-attachment. That's your non-attachment lesson.
it's just also like it's like my soul's like, I'm good. I'm not mad, you know? But
Right.
so I answer myself right away when I say, who's the I that's so frustrated? Who's
That's a
the
good
I
one.
that's so upset right now? And my soul's like, not me,
I'm I'm curious to know, do you watch the news? Do you watch the politics? Do you watch all that stuff?
No, I sometimes see headlines. I haven't for a while, but sometimes I look at headlines and that's how I know, some of the things that are going on. But I try not. I did for a while. I would kind of like look at headlines and like open stuff. And now I'm like, that's not my job. Other people are doing that. And I'm going to just keep trying to wake up these intergalactic beings, if you will,
Mhm.
to get to work.
I think that that's a really important thing. For me personally, I haven't watched the news for more than 10 years.
Yeah.
Whatever I need to know, people will come and tell me. So
Me
it's,
too.
I get the awareness from other people because people always talk, but I feel like a lot of the things, the motivation behind them is to sell an ad, which means that they've got to be negative to draw you in. And so it lowers your vibration. And I find it very difficult to keep your vibration high if you get sucked into those types of things.
Yeah. I don't think it's really helpful. I think, it's fine Netflix or Amazon or something if you find something that you like. I think that's fun. It's
Of
fine. Go
course,
ahead.
absolutely.
Like we're
Yeah,
here to be human. We're not here to disregard our humanness. I'm saying
right.
stop acting so human, and that's for specific people who are like, "Oh yeah, she's talking to me."
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you don't. I mean, when I was talking on a podcast, and one of my favorite books, I think is well, one you can imagine I like time travel books because I feel like I joke,
Yeah.
I feel like a time traveler, and
Yeah.
then I like, there's that. Oh gosh, it was a. I love The Matrix. I think that was a fun
Oh,
one.
me too. That was a wake up movie for
I
sure,
was like,
right?
this is real, like in a way.
Yeah.
And then I love like The Martian with oh my God, Matt Damon. I mean, I watch like normal, every Christmas my husband and I probably force him, but we watch The Holiday with Kate Winslet and I do normal human things.
Right.
But it's about realizing the real job here is to up-level consciousness for humanity. And
Yeah,
that
I
actually
love
brings
that
those,
term. That's a great
and
way to say it.
it's easier. And it also, as we do that, it brings those lower vibrational beings up because they don't want to be stuck.
Mm,
Everybody's going up.
yeah,
We
yeah,
can look at them and judge them and say they're misbehaving, wars, genocide, trafficking, all these horrible things.
yeah,
But we are one. So it's like looking down and going, I don't like my knees. I don't like my toes. They're too low for me. I mean, we would never do that, right? We're not judging.
right. Of
But
course.
we do that in this because this world is so filled with duality. So up level for everybody.
I
Yeah.
love it. Oh my gosh. I have had so much fun talking to you. I know that you have some very special gifts that you got and you already kind of came in awake and psychic. So will you tell people some of the things that they can do to work with you specifically? Because I know that there are going to be people that have resonated with you
Thanks.
during this.
Thank you. So my quiz is one. That's on
Mhm.
my website, Soul
And
Priority,
that's
SOU.
free.
Free. You have a lot of free things. My Facebook group is free. We can put the link in here to my Facebook group because then
Yes, I'll put it down in the show notes.
I do, intuitive readings once a week. There is a free astral therapy, so you can experience astral therapy is my own modality that I created and trademarked of being able to go into the higher realms with me to experience yourself as the soul and then clear any human conditioning. The one I have in my Facebook group is always around finding your purpose and clearing what's blocking you because I think that should be free. People should just know that.
Oh,
Um,
wonderful.
yeah, I always want to have people experience that. And then yeah, I have a low cost membership that I'm starting and there's different ways to work with me, but definitely get in the free group because that's where we can really kind of get to know each other and
I am definitely going to read your book, Soul Priority. I didn't know that you had all that in there about your past lifetime, and that's just, I want all the details about it. It's
that's
really cool.
mostly what the book is about. Yeah, people I think they hear near death and they if it no, most of my stories it's a bit different than that.
Oh my gosh. Well, this time went super fast. Mariko, thank you so much for your time today and for sharing your wisdom and your downloads with the world. I so appreciate what you're doing for humanity.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure. It did go by fast. I could talk to you forever. This was
I
so
know
much
I
fun.
could talk to you
This is so
forever.
much fun.
I feel like I'm the luckiest person to get to have these
No,
conversations.
I feel lucky. This was so fun. Thanks for having me on your show and just getting to, connect with everyone here listening. And I love what you're doing and just bringing awareness and raising the consciousness for everybody around and giving them the opportunity to hear, different perspective. Yeah,
I
thank
love
you
it.
for doing.
Okay, thank you.